Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Sr. here with you. And no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, I appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. Instant reaction post-game show coming your way on the Niners Report as San Francisco takes down the New England Patriots at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara by a final score of 30-13. The Niners 2-2 after the month of September, and they will kick off the month of October against the Arizona Cardinals next week. An Arizona team that has some talent. They've had some good moments so far this year, but they are coming off back-to-back losses, including a defeat today at the hands of the Washington Commanders, in which Arizona got absolutely annihilated. In this game for San Francisco, Brock Purdy, 15-27, 288 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He threw some incredible passes downfield, was able to drop the ball in a bucket on a long ball to Deebo Samuel, the same on a 99.9% throw to Jauan Jennings, and you could tell that Kyle Shanahan really wanted to dial up some of the deep shots for his quarterback today, and I thought that Purdy fared well in that area of the game. The one interception that he threw, just a bad decision. He tried to force it into double coverage to Brandon Ayuk, and Jabril Peppers made a really good play on the ball. The one touchdown that he threw, one of the best, most highlight reel-worthy catches for George Kittle in his entire NFL career. Another really good day for Jordan Mason, who carried the football 24 times for $123, and Jauan Jennings, for the second consecutive week, able to lead the Niners in receiving, 3 catches, 88 yards. And then you look at some of the simplified numbers for New England. Jacoby Brissett under siege all day. This Niners defense was really good. Their defensive line was wreaking havoc. He couldn't find a rhythm, and he got pressured. Patriots couldn't run the football. They didn't have many explosive plays. And that's where I want to start the postgame show off with, is the good for San Francisco. The first couple of weeks of the year, this Niners defense was horrible, and statistically, they ranked 21st in points per game allowed, 16th in yards per game allowed, 30th in yards per play. They gave up nearly 53% of third down conversions. That was 30th in the National Football League, and they were 21st in red zone defense. And in this game, we saw what this Niners defense is capable of when they have quality play calling, when they have quality coaching, when they don't have communication lapses and breakdowns in that secondary. And this was really a collective defensive effort at all 3 levels. But they should have had a performance like this against this New England team, because this Patriots offense is anemic. We know that Jacoby Brissett is the holdover plan until Drake May, the rookie out of North Carolina, is ready. The Patriots entered this game averaging 13 points per game. That was 31st in the NFL. They were 32nd, dead last, in yards per game. They were 30th, so bottom 3 in yards per play at 4.2, 23rd in third down conversion rate, 28th in red zone scoring percentage, and they were scoring a touchdown per game. That ranked 29th. So if there was a week for the Niners to find a groove, find some confidence, figure out some personnel usage packages, and to experiment with some things, it was in this game against New England. You had 6 sacks of Jacoby Brissett. Niners defensive line and defense as a whole had not had a performance close to that the first 3 weeks of the year. They forced turnovers. You had a Fred Warner pick 6. He continues to put forward a Defensive Player of the Year campaign. He dropped back in coverage, kind of disguised things a little bit, faked out Jacoby Brissett, had to climb the ladder, picked him off, was able to get on his feet, got some blockers downfield, took it to the house. Fred Warner did suffer an ankle injury in this game. Part of what makes him great and a future Hall of Famer in my eyes, it's the great play, it's the leadership, but it's also the durability. He's been an Iron Man of sorts, barely missing any time throughout his entire NFL career, and I'm just talking snaps. He plays every single game. So with that ankle injury, he did have his pads on the sideline, so that's a good sign. I think if it was a closer game, Fred Warner could have gone back in there. You had the Sam Okuwanu fumble forced, which was recovered by Malik Collins. So that's 7 points on the Fred Warner pick. You got 3 points off the fumble forced by Sam Okuanu, who was elevated to the active roster. Not only did he get a pay bump, he's playing some damn good football for this Niners team. And in the last 2 weeks, he's really showed up. The Niners only gave up 3 yards per carry. Up to this point, they hadn't been able to stop the run. They didn't give up those explosive plays in the pass game. I thought Nick Sorensen got creative from time to time with mixing up some of his coverage looks where they would tease a blitz. They would drop some people back. They'd run some twists and stunts up front. They would disguise some of their coverages in a way where Jacoby Brissett didn't really know what the Niners were doing, which caused him to hold on to the football, which then led to the Niners being able to generate that pass rush. And speaking of the pass rush, Nick Bosa was dominant today. Nick Bosa was a menace. Nick Bosa had one of the finest performances that I have seen him have as a professional. Now, it's only going to show up in the stat sheet with him having 1 sack, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, which came on 1 play, 1 TFL, but he was wrecking plays and was consistently breaking the pocket down for Jacoby Brissett. And I thought Nick Bosa was just phenomenal from the start of this game to the end of it. And it happened in a game where the Niners defense had to find a groove, because next week, this is going to be a difficult game against the Arizona Cardinals. And if the Niners don't clean some of these things up offensively and defensively, that could be a game in which the Niners lose. So those are some of the positives from this game for San Francisco. The concerns that I have, those are coming up just around the corner. Don't you go anywhere. First, our sponsor for our post-game show, Instant Reaction here on the Niners Report. Following this Week 4 win for San Francisco is Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports app in the game with over 5 million active members here in America. It's daily fantasy sports made easy, where you pick 2 or more players, you choose more or less on their projected stats, and right now, you win $50 automatically when you play $5. All you have to do, you don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Just go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use the code CLNS. As for our picks today, you should have tailed producer Chet. He was once again a winner, and if you tailed him, you're a winner. Caleb Williams, more than a half passing yard. That was the special for Prize Picks all throughout the month of September for football selections. Jauan Jennings, more than 2.5 catches. And then Antonio Gibson, more than 31.5 rushing and receiving yards. That's how the game is played. It makes game day a lot more fun. Prize Picks, run your game. We'll put all that information down below in the comment section and in the description of today's Niners Report. All right, to some of the concerns that I have with this Niners team, and I think that this is the case for a lot of teams across the NFL, the month of September has become glorified preseason. With these new NFL rules where you can't wear pads all that often, or teams just don't wear pads, you can't tackle to the ground, you have limited practices, practices are not as physical as they used to be, teams don't play a lot of their starters in the preseason. That is the reason we're seeing so many injuries. That is the reason why players seem to be out of shape. That is the reason why offenses, which rely on being rhythmic, in tune, in sync, where there's a lot going on pre-snap with movement, with your blocking technique, with your route combinations, with timing. That's why these offenses have been lackluster the first month of the season. And I hate it. Growing up in the 90s, in the early 2000s, the lack of physicality wasn't a thing during training camp. There would be these physical training camps because NFL teams knew, players knew, coaching staffs knew that you can be in peak conditioning, but nothing replicates game physicality, actually getting tackled, the jolt of having to use fast twitch muscles and playing the game of football. And now because there is in a lot of that in the lead up to the season, we're seeing all these injuries, but we're seeing disjointed teams, especially on offense, where communication, rhythm, being in sync, all of these things factor in. And for the Niners so far this year, they have looked like a team that is out of sync, that doesn't have that rhythm, that is disjointed. And they're committing penalties that they shouldn't be committing. Now, they still put up 431 total yards, 19 first downs. They're 7 of 13 on third downs. They one time of possession, 31 minutes, 35 seconds, but they're bad in the red zone right now, and that's an issue, and they're certainly missing Christian McCaffrey. There are pre-snap penalties where there's an illegal shift, there's an illegal motion, there's an illegal man downfield. There are penalties that are avoidable that are holding the Niners back from fully reaching their capabilities as a football team. And then defensively, you're seeing some of the communication lapses and some of the breakdowns. So the Niners are going to be able to work on these things, and these are correctable issues. But that is played into this Niners team being a 500 team because they have looked and they have played like an average mediocre team. And when you're average and mediocre, you're sitting around 500. And if they correct some of these things, then it's hard to be fully in sync when you're without Trent Williams all summer. You're without Brandon Ayuk all summer. You're patching things together. You're without Deebo Samuel and George Kittle last week. They returned this week, and I thought that they looked good in their return. You're trying to figure out some offensive line issues, right? It's not easy to do that when you don't have your full semblance of offensive weaponry on the field all throughout the summer, when you're treating September as glorified preseason, but also when you played deep into last year, you had a shorter offseason, not as much recovery, and you're trying to shake off that Super Bowl hangover. Maybe in hindsight, this slow start is a good thing because this means that the Niners are going to peak toward the midway point of the year, toward the back end of the year when they need to. If you remember last year, I thought they peaked a little bit early, and then toward the end of the year, they weren't playing their best football on the offensive side of the rock. It's so hard to have consistent success year over year in the National Football League. The Niners are finding that out right now, and I do have confidence that they can get it together. Now, the offensive line protection of Brock Purdy continues to be very worrisome. The special teams units continue to be terrible, whether it be punt coverage, kick coverage, punt return, kick return. Today, Isaac Guerendo fumbled a kick return. They are awful on special teams. Mitch Wishnowsky doesn't look like the same guy. Some of the coverage, we've seen these breakdowns. We've seen blocking breakdowns. That has to get better. And hopefully defensively, this was that type of turning point of the season that the Niners needed, that the Niners can use to finally find their groove on the defensive side of the football. As for that Brock Purdy, George Kittle touchdown, I'm just seeing the replay right now. Great throw by Purdy. He threw a couple of dimes with touch downfield today. Really good performance from him. And then George Kittle to leap up among three Patriots defenders and snatch that football off a Patriots helmet. Next level stuff. So some good, some bad. That's kind of been the season so far for San Francisco. Some good, some bad. They shoot themselves in the foot. But I think there can be better football for this team moving forward. But they're going to have to correct some of those issues. If not, it's going to be one of those frustrating years where they continue to hold themselves back of what they're fully capable of doing. And again, we'll continue to monitor that Fred Warner ankle injury. So grade the Niners in week 4, A, B, C, D, or F. I'm going to go B-. It was far from perfect. They still win 30-13. So that goes to show you how good they can be. But this is a game you should have won against an inferior opponent, and the Niners took care of business.